there's a kid who's 12 years old, and this kid is in a tremendous amount of pain. A lot of pain, suffering, and struggling, and the kid's wondering, the kid was put in public school, even though both parents are from and have absolutely no reason in the world to send. The trouble is that they're not married, and as a result, there's a schism in between them. And the kid has reached a point, to describe what's going on, the kid comes home, and I'll summarize the whole problem, that the mother said the kid doesn't call her mommy. Instead, the kid uses 2 words. One begins with an F, and the other one begins with a B.
Oh, no.
And that's how the kid addresses the mother every time they come into the house. And the question is, I was wondering, this kid goes to one of our programs as a single parent kid, and there are 500 kids. Many of them are in great positions, actually pretty good, pretty well adjusted, but some of them are not. And the funny thing is about this kid, that this kid in the program is reported to be a Ziskite, an absolute charm, a wonderful, lovely, loving, giving, well-mannered kid in the program. And it's a shocker to discover that that's exactly the polar opposite of what's going on at home. And the question I was wondering was, what's the deal? How do you handle that? What do you even do with it?
Clearly, he's very angry at his mother,
Clearly.
obviously, and that has to be stopped and nipped in the bud ASAP. But
So-
regardless of his feelings, we don't talk that way. That's it. It's not acceptable.
Okay,
I
so
don't know.
basically
And then
your approach is to tell the child, we don't talk that way to mommy.
I think that he has
And-
to know that, especially if you're saying that he is a sweetheart in other areas. He's receptive. He can do it. He can handle it.
Right.
He needs to hear that from somebody he respects and will listen to.
So you're saying the kid should be told straight out that we don't talk that way to mommy, and
I'm sure he knows that. It's not like this is rocket
Oh.
science to him. But she's obviously, it's been going on.
Right.
I don't know that it can be allowed to
I
continue
don't
like
really
that.
agree, because sometimes when you're told, don't do that, that's what you want.
For
Right.
12-year-old.
That's
possible.
not-
I mean,
Right.
for,
I think it's a matter of allowed or not allowed.
He's talking going on.
He's talking that way.
There's something going on, obviously.
Yeah, he's angry.
You're angry with something, he needs validation
Right,
first.
yeah, right.
Right.
They're probably past the point
Right.
where they could say to
They're
them,
probably
you
right.
can't
I'm
say
sure
that.
she tried to say, please don't
It's
call me
probably,
that.
then I'm
Right.
not coming home.
Right.
Also, if a
I
kid
told her I talk or I'm not coming home.
if a kid is in public school, you might think that's not even right. It's not a really there's no chiddush over there even. It's just in the way you talk.
You're probably right. I deal with very young children, and I think that's the response to young children.
I don't think a 12-year-old knows.
Under
I
5, it might
think
be
a 12-year-old
different.
knows that it's wrong. to
It's
come
wrong, but
home.
that's why the kid's doing it.
It's negative attention and.
Right.
He might not understand the degree of how much it hurts his mother.
Right.
He knows it's wrong.
So we have a problem on our hands.
He's doing it.
And I would think, based on what you're all saying, that one of the things, perhaps the core of what we're going to try to do, is not so much to tell the kid to stop, but how about we want to show the kid how to stop? And it's not so much how to stop as much as it is how to replace a very negative behavior with something positive.
Understand people have like things.
Right.
What's wrong? Why are you?
The kid he's in a lot of pain and needs to learn how to switch that, how to change, and how to be able to reach a point of first and foremost happiness and validation of one's existence. And wouldn't it come from people in your life who themselves feel their existence is valid? which means when you're being educated by someone who themselves is happy and present and confident in their own skin, then that person could express that to you. Unlike what most of us would likely do in the default setting. What would be the default setting? You'd be like, don't you dare. And then what happens? You would get back at don't you dare. So it isn't so much a question of you're not allowed to do this. It's a question is, and how do I stop myself from doing this? How's that for a challenge if you're a mommy and you feel, I can only imagine the blood boiling every time you hear that. And you're told, no, but you got to also help the kid and figure out, not just for yourself, but not to get annoyed, but actually be present and actually be able to help the kid and transform them. So what I want to discuss today is really the background, the setting in which a healing can take place. So before we get to the actual healing, the question is, how do we get to the point where healing can take place? When the Jewish people were initially formed as a people, so the moment of formation takes place at Matan Torah. They go out of Mitzrayim, and after they escape Mitzrayim and the bondage and the servitude of being forced into hard labor, so the next step is they come to Matan Torah. But in between Matan Torah and Yetzias Mitzrayim was a 7-week period. And during that period, a lot of things happen, fascinating stuff. One of the most fascinating stuff that happens is that it's the splitting of the sea. And I want to focus on that event today. Because when we learn Torah, we don't learn history so much as we learn present and current events. That means every day, every moment, when you want to get out of Mitzrayim and be able to receive the Torah, which is to feel Hashem's presence in your life, that's Matan Torah, what needs to happen in the interim is you need to split your ocean. And that's significant in the original story because you know that there was no need to split the ocean, to split the sea. Kriyas Yam Suf actually didn't need to happen. If you look at the map between Egypt and Israel, there's no sea. If you go from Egypt to Israel, you go through the Sinai Desert, the Gaza Strip, that area, and you hit Israel. And it's not even so far. They're pretty much neighbors. What's up with this 40-year sojourn of getting there? So what actually happened was, and even before the sin of the spies, which led to the 40-year delay, the Jews were actually, they were led into the sea. Almost as if Hashem says you have to go into the sea and you have to experience the splitting of the sea, and that's a prelude to be able to receive the Torah. So they go into the sea, and it's interesting that they didn't even go from one side to the other. They went in a semicircle. They came out the same side they went in. So really the purpose of the splitting of the sea was to get rid of the Mitzrayim, of the Egyptians behind them, and then to get the Jews through the Yam Suf to the next level. So what would you think is the splitting of the sea in our lives? What does it mean to us? And it's clearly very significant because every morning when we daven, we have this very important part of davening, which is singing to Hashem. And that song that we sing is the Shira. And if you look in davening, we work our way up. So we're praying to Hashem, and we work our way up through Psukei de Zimra, which is the verses of song. And then, as we're about to move into the next level, which is the Shema and the brachas, the blessings that come before the Shema, there's this part of davening, which is we're finishing Psukei de Zimra with the Shira. And it's Oz Yashir Moshe B'nai Yisrael. We get into the state of a song. And what we're going to try to do is, in order to understand what happened by the splitting of the sea, understand how and why we sing. For some reason, the splitting of the sea is associated with song. What do the Jews do when they behold the splitting of the sea? Oz Yashir Moshe Uvnei Israel. They sing to Hashem. The men and the women. Miriam took the ladies, and she was singing. Everything's about song. Why weren't they singing in Mitzrayim? They were let out. Why was there no song when they got to Makas B'chayros? Firstborn, and now they were killed, and the Jews are getting out. Why weren't they singing?
Because they had to experience the Nis themselves. They observed the Nis happening to the Mitzrayim.
So you're saying the observation of the miracle in Yam Suf was greater.
They experienced it. It wasn't only observe it. It was authentic to them personally.
Okay, nice. I just saw recently, there was actually quite a beautiful event. You saw a whole group of Hasidim, I think they were Viznish, I'm not sure exactly. And then I found out what's going on. They're building a building. And they took all the donors and they went to make an event. So where's the event? In Eilat. And they went to the Yam Suf. And they went there on Parshas B'Shalach. And quite beautiful, the singing of Oz Yashir as they're like on the Yam Suf, on the banks of the sea, and they're singing all about the splitting of the sea. It almost felt like the ocean was about to split again. Did it? Is the question. Well, maybe we want to learn how to split the sea in our lives. And there's a way that you and I can split the sea. And splitting the sea is very closely connected to singing. When you sing, you're actually, in a certain sense, splitting the sea. So let's see how you do it. What's the difference between the dry land and the ocean? Chazal say, the rabbis tell us that Kol ma sheyesh bayabosho yesh bayom. Whatever you have on dry land, you have in the ocean. Fascinating, because if I look at the ocean, all I see is one big, boring, watery, endless, flat surface is all I see. And what you're telling me is that actually under there's mountains and hills, there's volcanoes erupting, and there's life. It's teeming with life. And there's so many different types of life, and every different type of being that exists on dry land actually exists also in the ocean. But when you look at the ocean, you don't see any of that. All you see is just an endless ocean. Now, when you look at dry land, the beings of dry land come from the ground. The creation, the beings of the ocean come from the ocean. But there's one difference. If you come from the ocean, you come from the ocean and you stay in the water. Those who come from the dry land, meaning from the ground, we may be created from dust, but we don't live in the dust. A fish, if you remove him from the water, he dies. An animal, a human, if you put him in the ground, that's not good. You want to take him above the ground, and there he can thrive and exist. So things are very different on dry land and on the ocean. On dry land, what happens is, you look at the dry land and you don't see one endless being. You just see a lot of things. And every time there's a mountain or a valley or another person or an animal or a human, you'll see it clearly. Because on dry land, we don't live in the dry land. We don't live inside the earth. We live on top of it. Now, let's take that as an analogy for our lives. We have two parts to our personalities. One is called the dry land. The other one is the sea. The dry land is Alma de Isgalia, the revealed world. And the hidden is Alma de Iskasia, the concealed world. We live in the revealed world. That means if I talk to you and I say, who are you? What are you about? You'll react from a conscious level. That's your thought, your speech, and your action. What you think, speak, and act is your conscious. Your seichel, your emotions, that's your consciousness. But now think about it this way. Beneath the consciousness, there's a fascinating world. It's the subconscious. And the subconscious is you. And it's the funniest thing in the world, because to discover you would probably be the greatest, most mysterious discovery ever. We're looking to find out, is there life in Mars? And what's going on in some Milky Way and galaxy all the way there? And what's happening at the bottom of the ocean, miles and miles down the ocean? But really, man doesn't know what's happening within himself. It's so deep. And we go to therapy for the rest of our lives to figure out who we are. Why do I think that? Well, you figure out, yeah, because your mother said something to you and that's what created it. Yeah, and why did that happen? We live in this absolute obscurity. We call that the hidden world, the Alma de Scasia. That's the ocean. And each of us has an ocean inside of us. So the ocean's underneath. And then on top of that, when the ocean recedes, when Hashem pulls away the waters, you have dry land. What's better to live in, an ocean or dry land? Dry land looks much nicer. But you know what happens when you're in dry land? Imagine you live your life, and every little thing that happens is another obstruction, another thing to deal with. So imagine you wake up and you have no overarching, overpowering, all-encompassing mission in life. And you don't have something that keeps you going. So what happens? I wake up, okay, today I'm waking up, I have to do this and this. Tomorrow I got to do that. And then someone says this to me and another bump, and you hit me and I go up and down. And every little bump in the road, every little bump in life hits me hard. So if you give me a compliment, I feel great. If you critique, I feel down. Do you see what dry land is? Every little thing that happens is a bump in the road. And it's great if life is going wonderful and if everything's going good for you, that's amazing. But if it's not, wouldn't it be so much more exciting to live in the ocean, where you just feel part of something wholesome?
I love swimming. I love swimming on the ocean. It's just so green and just so right.
You go snorkeling.
You're just going.
Right.
Anyway. Yes.
What's interesting also the way you describe it. When you walk on dry land, every foot, every step you take is another step. You actually feel one more step, another step, another step.
Yeah.
In the ocean, you do what's called shot al pnei hamayim. You cruise. You just swim. And you cover ground in a short span of time. Now, in the corporate world, every company seeks to become like the ocean. What you want is that every employee in the company should feel the mission and the purpose and the vision of the company. So when you walk into a Marriott hotel to stay in, even the clerk who greets you, there's a way they greet you, there's what they say, what things look like. And when you go to Disney World, you want to see that the janitor, is maybe dressed up and looks into the fantasy world. Imagine a family. If you don't have in the family a guiding principle and like an all-encompassing view, so every little detail you're stuck in. And when a family knows what we're about and what we're living for, and we love each other and we work for each other and we help each other, so now you have a reason to live and a reason to be. You see, what the sea does for you is gives you a bigger purpose and a bigger vision. So I'm not learning a daf of Gemara today. I'm finishing Shas. It takes 7.5 years to finish Shas. Are you a finisher of Shas? That's called Daf Yomi. If you tell people to go through 2,700 pages of Gemara in 7.5 years, good luck. How many people can actually do that? But the moment the person realizes, no, what do you mean? We're finishing Shas. And it's not just me, it's like so many people together with me. So I feel part of a family. I feel part of a wholesomeness. And that's what feels so good about it and so great. if you had to read Chinese, if I gave you a page of Chinese to read right now, how would that feel? Does anyone here read Chinese? If I gave you a page of Chinese and I said, you need to decipher this, to figure out what it means, that would probably be a painful experience, right? Because every little line, you'd be like, I don't know what that is. Like, thank God that you learn to read when you're 4. Imagine getting Aleph Beis when you're an adult, and now you're trying to, for the first time, decipher the Aleph Beis. It would be like looking at a page of Chinese. It'd be impossible to read. And I always remember when my little kid, who's now much older, but I was with her in the bank. We went to HSBC Bank. And it was such an amazing experience. I was waiting in line with her. Those were the days when you actually went to the bank and waited in line. And we were waiting in line. There was a sign there that said, please wait here in line. Except she was 5. And so she was looking at the words. And she read letters. She learned the letters. So it was P-L-E. And she read P-L-E-S-E. W-A-E-T. And it was very painful. And I was standing next to her in line, and she was just reading and reading and reading. And it was taking long, and it was a long line. And there was nothing else to read. She just kept reading this thing, and she was so excited. She was able to get the letters. And I was listening, kiddo, what's up with you? And she read it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. She read it so many times that she started to learn it off by heart. She's a little kid, a 5-year-old kid. And she was saying it so fast. And I was with her, just watching this momentous transformation take place. And suddenly she started reading it fast. And she read, please wait here in line. 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 I'm like, okay. And then she looks at me and she says, Abba, do you realize what it says? It says to wait here in line. I'm like, no kidding. Really? Wow. But this was an absolutely incredible revelation. I watched a 5-year-old kid. Her eyes sparkled. There was a light. And she says, it says to please wait here in line. And then she looked around the room and she started seeing there's other things in the room also that it said other stuff. And she's like, hey, that says rain, that says bank, that says, and she started reading things. And then for the next hour, we were going together. She was just reading every single word and sentences. And she couldn't believe it. That letters, which I'm learning, and the language that I know are actually the same thing. Voila! Eureka. And what happened was suddenly these painful letters, which took us so long to get to, they got a life into them. They were imbued with a whole different type of experience. And now she was like, I'm not looking at letters, I'm looking at words. And me, I couldn't understand, it was so clear to me that it took me a while to understand that what she did not understand. Think of it like this in an analogy. Think of a horse and a rider. Think of a letter as a horse, and the rider is the experience that comes across through the horse. So if I want to go somewhere in the good old days, I get on my horse and I say, I could get there myself, but Hashem made it that horses can ride and gallop a lot swifter than human beings. So I get on my horse and I say, okay, horse, giddy up, let's go. And the horse, for some odd reason, decides to listen to me. It's interesting because he's actually got more power than me, stronger than me, and swifter than me. And yet he obeys me. But that's the way Hashem made it. So I get on my horse and I go wherever I want to go. So think of a letter as a horse. If you want to get a person, transmit a message, please wait here in line, you take a bunch of letters, you write the letters, P-L-E-A-S-E, etc. You put them together, and then you communicate a message through that. Now, that's a very basic message. I'm just communicating you to wait here in line. But let's say I want to communicate an experience. Let's say I want to communicate Torah. I want to communicate my soul to you. I would also do it through letters. And your goal would be to take the letters and decipher and uncover what lies inside those letters. Now let's take a different example and let's think about experiences in life. Every experience that happens to you in life is a horse. And you want to ride on that horse. So, who's the rider? If someone gives you a compliment, Paige says, you're amazing, what happens to you? You respond, gee, thanks, I feel so good. A moment later, they critique you. And who's the rider on the horse this time? The horse is what happens to me. I stumble, I fall, something transpires. So when I fall, I think, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And now I respond negatively. The rider on the horse is the way you respond to the experience that transpires. Can you see that? So the horse is the experience and the rider is what happens, how you respond, the content, the letter and the content, the experience or the event and the experience. Every day in davening, we use this analogy of the horse and the rider. Do you know where? Familiar? I'll give you the words. Sus v'roichvoi. Keep on saying that, horse. Sus v'roichvoi rama vayom. It's the beginning of the song of Kriyas Yamsuf. And it's an integral part of davening. The horse and the rider. Of course, the story was that King Paroi came with his horses and chariots. And then all his men decided to follow the Jews because the sea split. So they followed them into the dry land, which had just been created inside the sea. And what happened was the horse, together with its rider, was thrown. So there was a miracle. They were thrust, they were cast. Sus v'roichvoi rama vayom. They were cast into the sea. And the miracle was that most horses, if you cast them into a sea and there's a rider on them, the rider's going to fall off the horse. The miracle was that the horse and the rider together were cast. So the guys stayed riding on the horse. And the horse and its rider together were cast into the sea, and they were, it's a tumult all over. Why do we need to say that in davening every single day? Like, you're a busy person. You're a mother. You got things going on in your life. Every day you got to speak about the story, about the horse and the rider. Why is that important to you? Oh, here's why. Because the greatest gift you could give to yourself is to throw your horse together with the rider into the sea. If we understand who's the horse, who's the rider, and what's the sea. Are we getting where we're going? The sea is a bigger experience in life. Everyone responds to every event that happens. Somehow, somewhere, you will respond. If someone upsets you or angers you or compliments you, you will respond one way or another. There will be a rider to every horse because you have to respond. You wake up in the morning, there's you, and there's a day. What do you do with the day? Can you imagine, and this is all in a positive sense, we're not talking about drowning in the ocean, but can you imagine if you could uncover the ocean, the subconscious inside you? And inside there, all your experiences and events become part of a beautiful wholesomeness? What would it feel like if you felt the purpose and vision of your life so crystal clear that you would actually be able to live from within that purpose? What would it feel like if you'd be able to practically feel Hashem in your life on a daily basis? You felt the presence of God every single moment, and you just felt like, I feel Hashem in the positive and the not so positive. It all becomes part of a wholesomeness. Take, for example, a soldier who goes out to battle. What you need to train a soldier, perhaps more important than the actual ability to fight, which is also important, hold a firearm, strategy, and tactics. But what you want to really do before that is get the morale of the soldier going. What are you fighting for? Because the soldier who's clear about what they're fighting for will not see every little nook in the road, every little obstacle. They'll see, I'm fighting a battle, I'm going somewhere, I'm accomplishing. And they're not going to be limited by the tiny little detail of what goes on. They're going to feel so much more empowered. How would we feel if we felt like soldiers in a battle rather than just people who are struggling in life? Like, why am I struggling? What's the point? What's the purpose? And one day Hashem says, I'll give you points. So we live a life, right? We're religious Jews. So we live in a way that, well, if you obey the laws of Hashem and you do what Hashem says, one day Hashem's going to reward you and give you the gift of paradise. And you say, thank you so much, but why am I struggling now?
Because you want the paradise now.
You want the paradise now?
I'm saying that's why. I'm saying, who doesn't want to live in the ocean?
Right. How do we get to live in the ocean? That's the question. How we possibly be able to cast ourselves into the ocean? How do we do it? We sing. That's how. What is a song? Songs are so boring. If you analyze what a song is, it should be a really boring experience. Like, you have a song with some words or a song with a tune. And people just sit there and they sing it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Imagine if I was just telling you the same thing 100 times. You would say, okay, I got that. Move on. What's the next point? But when you sing a song, you want to know the song. In fact, if you don't know the song and it's the first time you're hearing it, you don't really enjoy it so much. Maybe the words you enjoy. But when you sing a song, right? Like, got it? Now you want to sing it again. And there's songs work based on a circular motion. You go again and again. What? Familiarity. When you're familiar, you're able to sing it again and again and again, and then you feel the power. And suddenly when you get a whole bunch of people singing together, and the room can be like on fire. Nothing like a kumsit. You sit with a bunch of guys and you're singing and you get into the thing and you just like, you just feel the power. But if you actually analyze that, it's quite boring. It makes no sense. You're just repeating the same thing again and again and again. But you're not. Because what you're really doing is you're building a window into a soul. And song has the power to reveal that. I can never forget an experience I had as a kid. I was 14 years old. I was living in South Africa, so like a different type of a life. And then we came over here first time. And I was by the Lubavitcher Rebbe on Simchas Torah. And I came in, I didn't understand one word that he was saying the whole month that I was here. Later on, I went to study what was actually said. But I got the experiences. And one experience I came back with was the singing. There was a lot of singing. Simchas Torah, he stood there and he had a Sefer Torah in his hand. This size, small Sefer Torah. And he was dancing. And I'm a little kid, and I'm watching, and I'm feeling the experience. And what I remember was that the first night, they did it so many times, and the second night, I decided to count. There was Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. So I was counting how many times they're repeating the same song. That was the song I just shared with you before. And then it continues. But they got stuck on that part. And they were singing again. And I was like, it was 76 times. That's how many, I was like counting. I wasn't bored. I was blown away, actually. Because you know what happened at some point? You couldn't hear the song. You just heard people, like, there's like a euphoria that you hear. And you almost lose touch with the mundane. You lose touch with the grounding. And you feel like you're soaring up.
Wow.
That's what Nigun does to you. It's very, very powerful. That's
People higher and higher.
exactly.
So you get
So
stronger
hard to
as
explain
you,
this
as you go more, it gets stronger.
Yes.
I love it.
And this is why every day we Jews sing. Some songs it's a chorus of words, repetitious words. Ever get asked the question, why is davening so boring? Same thing every single day. Because it's a song. That's why. The whole davening is one big song. We're trying to get into a state of euphoria with our souls and with Hashem. That's why it's called Psuke de Zimra, the verses of song. Do you know the word Zimra has another meaning? What else does Zimra mean? If you speak Hebrew, the word lezamer. What? Lehalel is to praise. Lezamer is to prune. To prune.
Trees.
Yeah. Pruning a tree in the Mishnah is called the zamer. Yeah. It's many times in the Torah comes. Chumi zimra sa'aretz. The pickings of the land. Funny word to use, the same word as song is to prune. It's not funny, it's the same word. When you sing, the problems disappear. You cut away, you prune the issues. Issues don't have to be solved. It's not as important to solve them as it is to feel a sense of vision, mission, purpose, to become part of something bigger and greater. Because if you are, the problems dissipate. They disintegrate. You know how when you're happy and you're excited, you don't see the problems? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll take care of that, no problem. Problem doesn't go away. You are just so connected that you know exactly how to deal with it. You're elevated. Sus v'roichvo yirama vayom is the pinnacle of the song that we sing every single day, the whole Psuke de Zimra. When we daven, we're feeling Hashem's connection. It's like you're not here as a lone ranger. You start off davening, and what do we say? Elekai, neshama shenasata b'tahirehi. I have a neshama, I have a soul, and it's pure, and it comes from Hashem. And then I'm like, brachas. What's brachas? Remember, in English? To draw down. Bring Hashem down. Beirach. Bring him down. In today's language, beam me up. It's not thank you, Hashem. It's, wow, I feel Hashem's presence in my open eyes. I feel Hashem's presence. Baruch Ata Hashem. I feel you, God. You're here and you're all over the world. Elokeinu, and through that Melech Ha'olam. Zaykef Kefufim. I got up. I put on my clothing. I have strength. And suddenly I start looking at every single thing and I say, wow, like, I'm not sure what's going on, but every little detail of what's happening is part of this divine, incredible divine power that's in the world. And the divine power is in me. And I'm not sure how this works, but you see how you do that? And you move. And you stretch. And you breathe. It's Hashem's power. And you start looking around the world and you say, wow. Hoidul Hashem kiru vishmoi. Like, recognize God, call out his name everywhere. Look, Hashem is everywhere. Tell the world that there's a God. And what's fascinating is Hashem put us in this position to be the conduits to reveal this to the world. Most people don't daven. And most people in the world don't have a neshama. And those of us who do have and who daven are able to realize that there's a God in everything. And suddenly you look around, you see Hashem in everything. And you reach this point where you say, Kol haneshama tahalel ko haleluka. Like my entire soul is just screaming, wow, Hashem, it's amazing. I just see Hashem in everything. And as Chazal interpret, Al kol neshima uneshima tahalel ko. For every breath of life, I recognize God. And isn't it fascinating? The word tahalel doesn't just mean to pray, praise. It also means to light up, to ignite. When you don't look and find God every single moment of your life, it's so lonely. It's just me and my issues. But when I start seeing Hashem everywhere, I feel purpose. I feel connected. I'm in the ocean. The sea, the ocean, is that which encompasses all of us. It's what this company, it's the overarching principle that makes this company a company. Who are we? We're Hashem's people, Hashem's representatives. We have Hashem inside of us, and we're out here to make the world a different kind of a place. You saw any problems? You see any obstructions? Any obstacles? No, Hashem is there everywhere. You don't see Hashem? Every little thing you see God right there. I don't see problems. I only see opportunities. Because every time I see an obstacle, what's an obstacle? It's a space where Hashem is not noticeable. And it's an opportunity for me to notice him. Go for it. So make Hashem real there. And what's amazing is that the more you daven and the more connected you are, the more you feel Hashem's presence in your life and you respond from that space, you suddenly start seeing more and more and more that the problem doesn't exist in the first place. Because when you don't know how to read, every letter is a problem. It looks like Chinese. But when you know how to read, you don't see the letter, you see the word. And when you get really good at it, you don't see the word, you see the experience. And you just see Hashem everywhere. You know, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Baal HaTanya were together in the last days of Baal HaTanya's life. And the Baal HaTanya says to Tzemach Tzedek, he says, he was his grandson, he says, and they were in a small room. And he says, what do you see up there? And he looks up, he says, I don't know, I see a window on top there, I see a tile, I see a ceiling. Zayda, what do you see? He says, I only see letters of Hashem creating. He doesn't see a problem, doesn't see a world, doesn't see the issues. You just see Hashem straight. That's not impossible. That's something each of us is actually able to reach. And what happens is suddenly things change. You know, when you read stories of the tzaddikim of old, of the righteous people, sometimes we get lost in the miraculous part of the story and we lose touch with the message. But if you look at the message that's being communicated, you'll see this is the message. Here's an example. There's a story of the Baal Shem Tov that a Jew comes over to him because he says, Rabbi, I got a problem. He's like, my wife is pushing me to come to you, and I don't really buy into all this. So I wouldn't be coming. But she said I should come, to here I am. He says, Rabbi, I haven't been able to pay the rent for a long time to my poritz, squire, the Graf Potocki, and he's threatening to throw me into the dungeon like they did in the old days. You couldn't pay the rent, so sit in the dungeon until you figure out how somewhere. Most people didn't figure out how, they just stayed in the dungeon. And what should I do? So Baal Shem Tov says to him, I want you to go out, and the first person you meet, whether it's Jew or the Havdil non-Jew, and he offers you a sale, whatever he does, offer him, take whatever he's offering you, make the sale, make the purchase, and pay him whatever he wants. And he walks out and he says, that's the strangest piece of advice I've ever gotten. Nah, nothing doing. He comes home, and somehow the wife has more emunah than the husband, and she says to him, the Rebbe told you to do that. The Baal Shem Tov said, do that. So, okay, if your wife tells you, you have no choice. So he goes out, and sure enough, right away, exactly what was predicted by the Baal Shem Tov happens. The guy walks over to him, and he comes and he says, a very simple farmer, non-Jewish, comes over and he says, would you like to buy this piece of, I have a good piece of skin here, a hide of an animal. Would you like to buy it? And the guy looks and he says, okay, I mean, a piece of hide, sure. How much do you want? He says, a gold coin. Like a gold coin, that thing's not worth even a grush. It's a piece of hide, like who even wants that? But the Rebbe told him that you got to take whatever it is and you make the deal. So he says, sure. Takes out of his pocket the gold coin that he had, one gold coin, the only thing he owned. He has no money. And he gives it to the guy. And he buys it. Then he comes home and he says to his wife, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Like I paid so much money, insanity. Imagine paying $100,000 for a piece of hide, which is worth $10. She says, no, but the Rebbe said, now go back. Sure, his wife said to go back. So the poor guy is like totally uninterested. He comes back to the Baal Shem Tov. He says, okay, now, next week the Baal Shem Tov is the Poritz, the Graf Potocki is having a birthday party. And all the friends of his, all the wealthy, squires in town are going to be bringing him gifts. I want you to come and say, I have a gift for you too. And you give him this piece of hide. And the guy's heart, almost about to stop. He's like, the guy wants to throw me in a dungeon. He wants to kill me. And you're telling me that I should, you're kidding. I should go over and offer him this gift. He's going to behead me right there. And now he comes home and now he's in a real quandary. Because he comes home and he tells his wife what's going on. And he says, I'm not going because, I'll get beheaded. This one is not funny. That one, I lost a gold coin. This one, I'll get beheaded. And then he realizes that he's stuck because either he goes to the parts and gets beheaded there or at home. And so he goes. And now he's like wondering, wow, that's how powerful Shalom Bayis is. And so he comes to the parts and he's standing outside the palace and he's not able to bring himself to go in. And he's just sitting outside deliberating, why, Hashem, did you do this to me? Like, how could you bring me to this point that I'm in such a low level? And then the God comes over to him and he says, Jew, what are you doing out there? And he has no choice now. And he says, I come to bring the parts a gift. And he said, what's the gift? He says, oh, this is the gift. The guy's so excited, like, okay, he'll have your head right now. Comes in front of the parts and all the friends are there. And he's like, yeah, Jew, what have you brought? And he takes out his hide and he sheepishly brings it. And he's like, he says, what? The chutzpah, the audacity, that's what you're bringing me. And right there, and then he throws him into the dungeon. He's so angry, he's mad. He tells his friends, what do I do here? His friends start telling him, it can't be that he brought you some piece of hide. There has to be a deeper reason for it. So the guy looks, and he looks at the hide, and he's staring. And he brings his guys to look inside. Suddenly one of them looks, he says, look, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Right there, etched into it, it has the signature, your name, son of your father with a family name, and your birthday in the skin. Just like if you look at the skin properly, you'll see it etched right inside there. And he's marveling at this absolutely incredible thing. So he calls back the Jew and he says to him, where did you get that piece of hide? And the Jew's fumbling, he has no idea. He says, I'll be honest with you, I didn't intend to do this. I'm so sorry. I apologize. It wasn't me. It was some Rebbe who sent me over here. The Baal Shem Tov sent me, and it was his fault, and you should really blame him, and I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. And he's like, and he looks at him and he says, actually, I'm here to reward you. And it's amazing because it wasn't even you who did it. And you should know that man's a holy man. And he gives him a reward. And he gives him gold coins, and he lets him off on the rent, and the guy gets his problem solved. And you look at that kind of story, that's a Baal Shem Tov story. And sometimes we think these things don't happen to us nowadays, so it seems, but they do happen to us. They happen all the time. They happen every moment, because you look at the world and you sometimes see a piece of hide and it looks like a mishkababble. It looks like a total mess, and my life looks like no purpose, nothing to it. And when we allow Hashem into our lives, yes, the Baal Shem Tov was able to direct the fellow directly. But nowadays, we're already at the point that we have that power already. When we daven every day, we take that emunah and that sense of Hashem, and we bring it into our lives, and suddenly all the little things are transformed. And when Oz Yashir, Moshe B'nai Yisrael, if I can sing, if I feel like I wake up in the morning, I see Hashem and everything and around, I don't know what today is going to bring, but I find God everywhere. And when Moshe and B'nai Yisrael are singing in unison, so what happens is, sus v'roichvo yiromo vayom. Every experience that happens to you in life, which looks like an impossible piece of hide, it's actually covering over and belies a beautiful tapestry of the divine that's called your life. And it's perfect. Every little detail is perfect. You're seeing Hashem every step of the way. And all it takes is for me to wake up in the morning and to notice God everywhere and to sing a song. Because when I get into a state of song, the world starts singing with me, around me. And I venture to say that if you have a child who's reacting in a violent way, that before you can respond, you want to be yourself in that healthy space. And it doesn't mean to perfect it, because you'll never perfect it. Davening is there for us to do every single day, new challenges, new obstacles, new power. But every single day, if I get into a zone and I say, this kid is a part of God, and this challenge is mine, and Hashem is giving me the powers, and it's not my problem. It's not my issue. It's not an obstacle. It's an opportunity to reveal Hashem in a child. And I stop getting angry and annoyed by the obstacle. I throw the obstacle together with the experience at Hashem. You're telling me this, I'm feeling that. Hashem, it's all yours. What does it mean it's all yours? It's not a reflection of who I am. It's not my problem. And I feel like Hashem is with me. He's right here with me. And I don't need to get angry about this. I need to just respond calmly. When you're calm, you can tell the kid anything. When the kid feels like you love him, it's a lot easier to respond. And no, it doesn't take a day. It doesn't take a moment. But when you're calm and you're in the sea and you're in the ocean and the kid feels that message comes across. And that's why we Jews daven every day, because it's so much easier to live life when you look at the ocean and just one big, endless space for Hashem. And everything that takes place is not abandoned and not alone and lonely. It's all not dry land. It's all in the ocean. And the reason Hashem gave us the dry land was to be able to take the dry land and make it into an ocean. And that's what Bnei Israel do. The ocean splits, and they see that what's happening in their lives is all part of the ocean. That dry land, they're able to walk in dry land in the ocean. So we're living our lives, we actually look normal. But really, every one of us is a miracle worker. And the moment we allow that power into our lives to feel Hashem's presence every moment, we have that overarching power, then we can all become Baal Shem Tovs. We can do miracles. And some of those miracles, I think that when that kid feels connected, it's a greater miracle than a piece of hide that suddenly shows the name of the poritz on it. It's everywhere in the world is written Hashem's name. And it looks like hide. Hashem is hiding. There's a clipper. It's difficult. Bring him down, and the miracle happens.
Thank you.
So gonna listen to the good and
Yeah, so much.